So I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the Minnetrista work session for June 16th, 2025. Present this evening, we have a couple people that are participating, staff members participating remotely, and that is Ann Meyerhoff, our city clerk, and David Abel, our community development director. And then here in person, myself, Lisa Whalen, the mayor, council members present are Kathleen Refkin, Claudia Lacey, and Brian Govern, and then Peter Vickery is absent this evening. And then we have Gary Peters, who's our public works director, and then Ali Paulfus, our assistant administrator, Jasper Krugel, our administrator, and Brian Govern. Brian Grimm Govern. Hey guys, get different names. Brian Grimm is our finance director. So with that, we have three items on our work session agenda: Gillespie Center contribution discussion, and then the 26 yard waste disposal service, and that budget levy consideration. So with that, hand it over to you first. All right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. This is something that we've talked about a few times on and off for the last year or so regarding the Gillespie Center. A little bit of background history. The city of Minnetrista had a contribution agreement with the Gillespie Center from 2012 until 2021. That funding amount was $34,000 a year for those 10 years. So this is something that we've done in the past. We have representatives from the Gillespie Center, along with Miss Councilmember Lacey is our liaison to the Gillespie Center currently, and then we have Rhonda Nelson here as well to answer any questions. I did solicit questions from City Council members probably a couple months ago now, and I did share those with Miss Nelson, and she provided answers to those that have been attached to this agenda item. So I think if there's, and there was a specific ask, and it's $10,000 per year for 10 years is kind of the agreement. Some new information that I received from Rhonda about contributions from other communities, and she can talk a little bit about that. But City of Orono is contributing $12,000. City of Mound in 2020 is $8,000, $6,000 of that being cash, $2,000 of in-kind services. Spring Park, it's proposed for 12, and St. Bonnie is proposed for 12 as well. So she may be getting into a little bit more details about if that's 25 or 26 or when that funding cycle is. But I think the way to kind of go about this is kind of go through the questions. If there's anything specific that you would like clarity on, definitely reach out ask the question. And then ultimately what I'm looking for is direction moving forward. If we want to bring forward an agreement, we'll work through our legal counsel to bring something forward at a future meeting. And then a key question is, funding cycle. When do we want to do it? If it's something in 2025, we have to have a couple other conversations. If it's in 2026, then it'd be part of the budget process, which Brian's going to be presenting on later this work session. And then I'm sure there'll be some other questions that come up too. So with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor, and we can go from there.
So maybe I'll first say, Ms. Nelson, would you like to address the council, do a presentation, anything like that, or just address questions?
Well, I don't have a presentation.
That's fine.
Yeah, I'm here again, just,
Come up here.
Okay. Just requesting your support and your funding. Minnetrista surrounds Mound, and we are definitely community agnostic. We invite everyone into the center. We have people anywhere from even Wayzata, Delano, which have senior centers, Maple Plain, Independence, Watertown, St. Bonnie, all around enjoying the center. But the reality is it is kind of in the center of Minnetrista, and we do serve a lot of Minnetrista residents. And we do have membership, but the membership really isn't what you think of as a membership, like in a gym, because anyone is welcome into the center. I haven't tracked the residents' addresses. We do track residents coming in, and if you would like to, I can start tracking that. But I know that a lot of people use the center from Minnetrista, because personally I know them. I'm a Minnetrista resident, and I have several people in my neighborhood who use the center. So we are asking for $10,000. It's less than we've asked for before. We are still working. We've done a lot of work in the last year and a half since I've joined to kind of get out of the red and become profitable. But it takes a village to sustain that. And I would love to get city funding for our programs.
Okay. All right. So do we want to go through the questions first? Ms. Lacy, do you want to add anything?
I would like to just start firing away at these questions.
Okay.
You know, when I was asked to be the liaison at the Gillespie Center, I thought, you know, I wonder if this is a big train wreck and if it's feasible to keep this going. And I really didn't know that much about it, even though I've lived out here for 60 years. I very, very quickly saw where there were things that I thought maybe should be changed, which is hard to do in an organization that's, you know, primarily the help is volunteer and they're seniors. So you don't want to go, you don't know what you're doing. You know, we don't think you're doing this the right way, because some of these people have been volunteering there for 10, 15, 20 years. But what we did know is it really needed a new director with a new vision and a new set of skills. And the board needed to be more effective in creating change. And so all of these things have happened this year. The Gillespie, I was actually very surprised when I saw the Gillespie had, you know, $4.7 million in endowments and in investments. And I was very surprised to learn that most cities actually fully fund their senior centers. So when she's asking for this tiny little amount from a city that surrounds Mound, all these other cities have already stepped forward, some giving a little bit more than we've been asked, some giving a little bit less. But there was no list of ad nauseum of questions over and over the same. How are you going to do this? How many members do you have? The membership means nothing. I mean, these are seniors, most of them on some kind of aid, that are just showing, you know, I care about this place. I'm going to give you my $40. It's not going to sustain the Gillespie Center. The money we're asking for, and I feel very comfortable with this because I thought it's about $1 per resident. And this is a place that's open 7 days a week. There's probably 100 people that go in and out of that place every single day. Some are very young. Some come in for the bakery. Some come in just to play cards or have a cup of coffee. Even the seniors that live at Presbyterian Homes, which is a marvelously beautiful place right down the road, come to the Gillespie Center to hang out. It gets them out of the house. It gives them a place to go. And I've really become so impressed with what they do there. And they've updated the look of the building, not just the outside, but the inside is very kind of pottery varnish. The outside is more Minnetrista and less Elks Lodge nursing home. So I'm very proud of the changes that have been made. Rhonda is there constantly. You know, we have this United Healthcare executive with a tremendous amount of experience that is bringing that into our little town, which I think we should be very grateful for. She's extremely dedicated to it. She's got the personality that fits marvelously with it. The whole the booking of the facility has really taken off. We have one renter that's spending somewhere around $80,000 a year to come in on Sundays, which is absolutely magnificent. We really see a lot of positive things happening. You know, for the $1 a year per Minnetrista, it's a marvelous, marvelous facility. And we don't have to replicate it here in Minnetrista. That would be a tremendous duplication of services. And so I am very passionate about it. As far as what's the $10,000 going to be used for, it's not going to be used to go into a kitty for future renovations or pay salaries. It's going to be used for programs. So I don't care about, you know, how much do you have for building maintenance? This is for programs. So I've said this multiple times. If the building got picked up and taken to Oz in a tornado, we could still use that $10,000. Not tonight. We could still use that $10,000 for programs for our seniors. So I don't know if I've touched on everything, but I think it's in a very good position to serve our community and the surrounding communities We're asking for very, very little. Gary, we probably spent more than that on trees last year. I think our seniors are more important than trees. And, I'm kidding. Everyone that knows me knows I'm a huge supporter of our servicemen and women. And I would do anything for our police department. But we just spent, I granted, it's not the same bucket of money, but, we're spending $200,000 on a high-tech video game that makes our police, that's what I'm calling it. I know that's not what it is, but this is a ton of money affecting a few, it's our police department, but this is a very small amount of people, and we're spending a gigantic amount of money on something, yes, that's important. I think this is equally as important. I think it's for the health, well-being, and all good things for our seniors. And not just seniors, there's young people in there taking Taekwondo, coming in, getting tax information, getting pedicures, medical grade pedicures, helping with their eyeglasses. And there's just so many services that Rhonda hasn't even listed here. There's just too much to list. So there's a cute little library that's always open. It's very easy for them to park, run in, grab a little book, not worry about fees and fines and really checking in, it's just a wonderful place. So, clearly, you can tell I'm passionate about it. I think all the other cities, I think our cities run brilliantly. We've got an amazing staff, a great city council, in my opinion. But the other cities didn't even ask these questions. They were like, sure, how can we help? And so I really think we're the outlier waiting. And I'd really like us to step up, just like all the other cities did, for 2025. Give them $10,000. They're as important, if not more, than trees. Anyway, that's where I rest my case.
So just for clarification, I think I understand that St. Bonnie and Spring Park, the 12,000 is proposed. They haven't committed to that at this
I can
point.
speak to that. So when I did the roadshow, I started with Mound first, and then I went to Minnetrista. So, it took some time to go through. And by the time I got to their city council meetings, they'd already locked in their budget.
Right.
And they said, yes, we will support you next year. Please come back.
And same with Spring Park then?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. So I asked a lot of questions, and one of the things that I don't disagree with you, Claudia. I think that it's a fabulous entity, a fabulous organization. But one of the reasons I ask a lot of questions is because back in many years ago, before you were here, there was an ask by the Gillespie Center that we contribute and enter into a contract for 10 years, et cetera. And at that time, the community was really kind of, if you will, split. Some people thought, no, that's not right. We shouldn't be contributing to a nonprofit. If I want to contribute, then that should be my decision, not your decision. And you shouldn't be using my tax dollars to contribute to an organization that I may not want to contribute to for whatever reason, or if I want to, then I can do that on my own. And so there was a lot of kind of, like I said, some residents wanted it, some residents didn't want the city to contribute, and ultimately a city council that I wasn't a part of at the time decided to make that contribution. But with that contract, the contract and the board and the administrator at the time made it extremely clear that this was a one-time ask and it would only be for 10 years. And then the other communities such as Spring Park and Mound and Minnetrista and St. Bonnie when they were all together, they would contribute $110,000 a year. And after that, and they would put that 110 into an endowment fund. And that would balloon up to $3 million within that 10-year period. In the same time, the Gillespie Center was supposed to be raising $110,000 a year in order to sustain the current operations. So that's why I think I'm very surprised that now we're back in the same situation where there's another ask, and yet, Claudia, you just said there's $4.7 million in endowments and investments, and when I do the math, I think one of my questions was, what are you getting in return for your investments? And you said around 7%. That equates to over $300,000 a year. So
I want to correct that.
Yeah.
Some of that is the land value
Oh, yeah. I mean, the endowment itself is just under 3 million.
Okay,
That is correct.
so that would still generate a significant amount at 7%. So, it's really hard because we have other organizations in our community that are also extremely very good organizations, such as the West Tonka Recreation Association. They provide recreation for individuals of all ages. We also have other organizations that are nonprofits, such as We Cab, that provide a program for seniors. And we don't, if we were to contribute to every one of these organizations, it would add significantly to our levy that we would have to levy. So the question I would have to the council is, do we have a policy on who and when we contribute to nonprofits? That would be one question. And the other question is, just legally, when you say programs, I didn't see where there was a specific program or programs that are specifically for seniors, because I think by state statute, we can contribute to senior programs, but we would have to know what those programs are and then how much they cost. What is the cost of those programs? If indeed the council is interested in participating. But then I'm also surprised because to me, when I look at, I look at things, is there a need? Is there a need for this funding? And from your balance sheets and your statements, I don't see that. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
So I can just tell you as the director what I face every day. So we have, from the balance sheets and the current budget, we have to spend a lot on maintenance at this point. Our building is 25 years old, and our maintenance, they took a policy, the previous board and the previous leadership took a policy of not doing preventative maintenance. We have now changed that strategy, and we are doing preventative maintenance to try to continue to decrease costs going forward. But the reality is a big percentage of that has to be spent on building things. So that leaves me very little money for programming. Programming for seniors can range from the foot care that Claudia talked about to bringing in social programs, speakers and authors and things like that for social programming, I guess I'd call it. So our finance people took a strategy that they don't have a separate building maintenance fund. That so
because they used to have a $500,000 endowment fund for CIP. So that's gone away now. That's completely gone.
Well, they don't designate funds per se.
Okay.
So we have to dip into the endowment when we have those large bills, like we have had for the HVAC system, for example.
Well, the building hadn't been painted for 25 years. We repainted the building.
No, I know it's lovely. I'm not saying, yeah.
I just met with the contractor today because we have to replace all the boards on our portico because they're all rotten and weathered. So yeah, things like that come up almost weekly, sometimes daily, that we have maintenance type issues.
And we can't fund those.
Right, I understand that, right.
Just so you're aware of that.
Senior programming,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of need for senior programming. I had a guy come in off the street and said, I really want you to host a monthly band here. I'm like, great, well, I don't have the funds to do that. I would love to do that. He's like, I need a place, we should all have a place to go and listen to music and dance. I'm like, sounds wonderful, right? But bands are expensive. I talked to him for like an hour. I've talked to him about 4 times since then. He is now personally giving me money for the band. He is paying for the band outright. We'll still have to provide, we'll still have to pay for things like a liquor license and food and things like that, and to make it a venue. But it probably won't be a fundraiser, if you will, because if I had to make a fundraiser, the ticket cost would be exorbitant, right? So just entertainment, music seems to bring people into the center. So we provide Wednesday lunches, also a program for seniors, and Thursday breakfast. Another opportunity for funding there. And But when I pair it with music and I try to find like, sometimes there's a single guy in a band, like single guy band, you know, his own guitar, he'll charge me $50 for coming in. But I see my lunch increase from 10 people or 12 people to 50, 60 people, right? So, and then they enjoy it and they have fun. And sometimes Presbyterian Homes brings over a bus, right? And those kind of things. We've had a relationship with Scotty B, local restaurant person, and he has volunteered his time to come cook once a quarter. Again, that brings in the people, but we charge $10 because we want the people to come in. If we charge much more, they won't. And now he's, you know, his name is on it, so he wants to buy the ingredients. And now his ingredients are overcosting the cost that I'm charging. So things like that is an opportunity. And if I raise the prices, as Claudia said, most of our people that come in to use the center, most of them are on some type of aid. Like they can't afford to spend $30 to come in for a lunch.
And, I know we've gone back and forth on this, but I don't think WeCab or WeCan or, any of the local charities around the community are in the same bucket as our senior center. It is also a community center, but it's really known as a senior center. I was there a few nights ago. I think there were 40 people there square dancing. They were all senior citizens. And it was a wonderful thing to see that. So when, the majority of cities are funded by, senior centers are funded by their cities, I think that eliminates that question. Why should we pick the Gillespie Center and not all these other? I don't think it's. Because otherwise I'd ask you for some money for my charity.
Council, other questions, comments?
I'm not against funding per se, but the 10-year commitment is a little concerning to me. Just on kind of both ends is that, and honestly, if I was in your shoes, I'd probably be asking for a 10-year commitment. So I understand why you do, but I think from 2 points, one, it kind of encumbers future councils and the will of potential future voters. And then 2, maybe $10,000 isn't the right funding level 5-8 years from now. So I haven't quite made up my mind yet on like what the answer for funding is, but I am a little concerned about a long-term agreement to it.
I think, so here's where I'm having a really big struggle. $10,000 because it's about $1 per person. What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? I am so sorry, but it has nothing to do. I mean, if we're funding a senior program, it has nothing to do with how many kids we have in our community or how many 42-year-olds or 50-year-olds we have in our community. If we're funding a senior program, we need to know then how much is that going to cost us, because it has nothing to do with how many people we have in our community. We have, according to the census, we have about 9,200, 9,300 people in our community. First of all, not 10,000. Second of all, only 14% of those are senior citizens. And then, so when you do the math, I'm confused, because if we funded a dollar per person or a dollar per senior in our community, it'd be more like $1,200. And if we fund a program, I need to know what that program is costing. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense to me to just say, oh, give us $10,000 because you have 10,000, approximately 10,000 people in your community. There's no a correlation, in my opinion. I mean.
Well, there is in mine. I think that, and we're very close to 10,000 people. So yes, I rounded up. However, the service that provides when we spend that kind of.
But we have to know the program.
Okay, I'll say skip trees for 10,000 and let's give it to our seniors. I can't believe that we are nickel and diming such an important organization right down the road that is open 7 days a week for anybody that needs it. And what's most important is that the elderly have somewhere to go and something to do, and somewhere to eat, and somewhere to get the help they need, and someone to talk to get the services they need. I think it is an incredibly good deal, and that I would have asked for 50,000. I would have asked for much. I would have gone back to the 34,000 a year. I think, I'm sorry that the last person said this is a one-time ask. I probably would have said that too. Would have made it easier to get
Get it approved.
a city to give the money. But I think we should fund it forever. I think it's that important to our community, and it's a very small amount of money. So
When I originally came, just as a reminder, I did ask for 12,000 at the original ask, and I asked Mound for 75,000. Mound is in a completely different situation financially than you guys, I'm sure you're aware. So that's why they ended up not granting that. But I did ask for a lot more from Mound.
but they care for the facility as well.
And they do, yes, they do a lot of in-kind services for us.
We don't want to get to the City of Mound's financial situation.
Yeah, we
No.
don't want to be
So-
in City of Mount's financial situation, so,
Decisions.
yeah.
I mean, Lisa, I don't see a question specifically on this about what programs, but I could certainly provide the list of all the programs that are targeted towards seniors. Again, they're not limited to seniors because we're open to anybody, but they're mostly seniors. All of our exercise programs, our educational programs, I do seminars, I do excursions, the foot care services, the tax services, and all that stuff. I can certainly provide that with costs associated with, if that would help.
Is Sarah here?
Sarah's not, but
Okay.
do you have
Well,
a question about
yeah,
the
just-
state statute?
The state statute, I thought we could only contribute if it's for a specific senior program.
It doesn't say program, it's just for senior activities or senior services is what it actually says.
Services.
Yeah, so what that means so what that means is it could be like a program, it could be the building space itself. If there's a area where the seniors can sit, it's the building. You technically could be the building if there's senior services in the building too. So it's broad, it's interpretable, but it says senior services.
Okay. All right. All right.
So my issue is we've already given the Gillespie, I can't talk, Center hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's a charitable foundation. It's a great resource. I've never been in there. I probably won't go in there. The issue I have is we already gave you money and now you want more. Why should we choose you over any of the other charities in the area, as Lisa pointed out, like the West Tonka? But okay, it's great, but I've never been there. So if I want the city to give $10,000 something, I'd rather give it to WRA. I'm at that facility. So as a resident,
How much do we spend on parks?
That's not our
it's
part.
not our park.
Okay, I'm just saying
But-
parks in general.
But the issue that I have is that we've already given you money and I don't see a financial need based on the endowment. You can, there's other ways of fundraising besides coming to the city and asking for money. Other charities in the area do that. And I don't think it's a good precedent to just give more money because you're asking when then any other charity can come and go, well, you gave them $10,000 for the next 10 years. Why aren't we getting it too? We have X amount of residents who use it, and these are the services we provide them. I'm a no.
So the statute means that doesn't show you that the state believes there's a need to help fund.
Then
But we are helping fund, and if you
it
take,
did help fund.
if you,
But I think this should go on forever in perpetuity.
it is actually, when you think about $340,000 that we have given to the Gillespie Center, that generates nearly $24,000 a year. So we have in perpetuity, and we continue to give because we gave the $340,000 for 10 years. And at 7%, that's $23,800 a year that it's generating for the Gillespie Center.
So what is your answer to the cities that fully fund their senior centers?
That's their decision and that's their policy.
I
And
think that should be our policy. So, I mean,
Okay.
but I mean, we're asking for so little. And it's,
then let me ask you this. You said that you're now generating an additional $80,000 a year from rental to a church. And if I'm doing the math correct, you're generating somewhere over $200,000 from your endowment fund. So show me where the need is. Show me where your financial need.
We don't have
But it's not reflected in here.
We would like to build up an endowment to a level where we don't have to worry if the boiler goes out or the roof needs replacing. We don't have a buffer.
What amount then do you want for the endowment? What's the magic number?
I think we looked at, maybe saying about $4 million.
Yeah, I mean, in the past it was 3 million, but that was 15 years ago. So 3 million 15 years ago is
$4
different than
million.
it is today.
But I have a hard time understanding why the council can't see why other cities think their senior centers are a valuable thing and they should fund them to an enormous degree. And we're asking for a pittance to keep going so we have this wonderful asset right down the road.
Okay.
If I may, I just want to make a clarifying. I pulled the statute up. I can read it directly so
Thank
you guys can understand it. So in Minnesota, a city can appropriate money to support the facilities, programs, and services of a public or private, not-for-profit senior center or youth center. So that's the statute, just so it's clear. And I know you mentioned something about a policy. That's kind of the policy that we would have. It'd have to be a senior or a youth center.
Right.
And then it'd be up to the city council if they would like to fund it or not. So services, programs, facilities, as long as they're affiliated with senior citizen center.
I guess the only other thing I would say is, again, I'm not saying that it's not a great organization or it's not a great facility, but I would also say we have to look at how many residents are serviced in Minnetrista. And if you just look at the 34 members that are Minnetrista residents, I know you say you service more, but we don't have those numbers. Then I would say $10,000, that's like almost $300 per person. And in Mound, you have 210 Mound residents that are members, and they're contributing $6,000 or $8,000. It equates to like $48 a member. I mean, it's significantly less. So I think looking at everything, if there was a specific program that or a specific item that you don't have the money for, that you would need help completing, like if you had to replace your HVAC system and it's $50,000 and you only have $20,000, I could see the city saying, okay, we can help out. Or if you say we want to implement this program, this is a vital program, and it's going to cost $8,000 a year to do this program. Are you interested in supporting this program? But this is kind of a general thing. You're just coming saying, well, we just want $10,000 based on 10,000 residents. To me, it doesn't make sense. In order to support this, I would have to say, give me a program that costs and what the costs are and why you need our help. That's where I'm coming from. So I'm not saying we wouldn't support it, but I'm saying that's what I would need.
I would just refer back to the state statute saying what they allow.
That we can support it. But again, it's.
And they wrote it in those words because they think these kind of services are important. And I think we're getting all these services wrapped up in a lovely building for practically nothing. I think a $10,000 ask annually for the city to have that kind of benefit. And there is no way that it's 34 people from Minnetrista. I'm across the street from that building. There's hundreds of people from Minnetrista going in that building. And they just don't.
And again, I'm not questioning that, but we
possibly
don't have those
know.
numbers.
There could be 2,000 people from Minnetrista walking.
I don't think so. Not when we only have
know.
about 1,200 residents that are seniors.
Can I can get you that information, Lisa.
Yeah.
I can give you a list of programs and their estimated costs, and we'll get that to you. I just want to add, because you brought it up. When I came to you guys last time, I believe I was still a contractor. I was a healthcare executive. I worked for the CIO who worked for Brian Thompson, the one that was murdered. So I had a very high job. And I took a year off to care for my parents. And then somebody contacted me because I was doing some volunteer work at Pres Homes. And we have a Pres Homes person that works there on the board. And she said they need a director. They're in dire straits. They're in the black, or they're in the red. And so I said, I don't know if that's for me, but I will listen. And so I listened. And I pitched them a 3 to 4 month contract. And I said, I can help you turn this around, and I can create a vision, a mission, a values. And I can create our programming and our marketing plans around that to be successful. So I did that. And then I said I could hire you a full-time director and train her and make sure she's successful. Unfortunately, they didn't include me in the hiring process, and they did hire a director, and that person didn't work out. So saddened me. So said, yes, I can continue to stay on until you find a new one. And somewhere in there in the middle, I have a passion. I fell in love with the place. It has real value, right? Like, I don't need to work there. I don't do it for the money, but I certainly didn't think I had the skills for it, but I do, because I have all these, I wear many hats. I'm really the only full-time employee there. We have a half-time person that does the rentals, and then everybody else is volunteers.
Right.
It's contract cleaner, but
And Rhonda, don't misunderstand me. First of all, you're doing a phenomenal job.
thank you.
Yes, you are. I recognize that. And second of all, we're not saying it doesn't have value, but as an elected official overseeing our tax dollars, I need to be sure that, one, that it's being done appropriately, and two, that also that when people ask me, how come you're contributing, I can say, well, we're contributing to this program because they don't have enough money, and this is the program that we feel is very important for our community. So it's all of that. It's
So I can certainly provide. I understand that 100%.
And the other thing that we have to look at too is, if we do this, I agree with Brian. One, we're not going to do this forever, and we're not going to sign any kind of contract, and we're not going to do it for 10 years or whatever. But the other thing is, it can't be this year. Otherwise, we have to cut something very important out of our budget. And I'm not prepared to do that. And even when we're looking ahead, then we have to make a lot of financial decisions as well, because every penny, every dollar that we take in, tax dollars, counts. And we have to be able to justify that to our residents. So,
and as a Minnetrista resident, I appreciate that, right? Like I very much appreciate the financial governance that you guys have.
Again, you're doing a phenomenal job, much better than me. And it's a great facility. So what I would say is, it's not going to, my opinion, it can't happen this year for sure, because we didn't budget for it. And I'm pretty sure that some of the other communities are going to say the same. And then what I would say is, if you want us to fund a specific item or project or program, please let us know that, and let us know those numbers.
Sure.
And it has to be. Is that?
I think that's a compelling argument. Yeah, if you can give us a program that otherwise wouldn't happen, but for the funding you're requesting from the city, I think that's an easier pill to swallow than just nice to have.
Should I work with Jasper to get that information back?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? No discussion?
Thank you, Rhonda.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming
Thank
in.
you. All right. So next, let's see, got to get back to my agenda. I think we have a discussion on the yard waste disposal service.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, this idea kind of reared its head at the 2025 State of the City event. I don't know if this has been talked about in the past. I think
It has.
talking to Gary, I think it has. I think we've determined internally that we just can't do any compost site on any of our property. It's cost prohibitive at this point. So one thing that we're aware of, and we did a little research into, is the city of Mound has a partnership with the with the mulch store located off Trunk Highway 7. I think everybody's familiar with the location, to allow their residents to bring yard waste there during their regular business hours. So we did a little digging into that contract. That contract with Mound is about $13,000 annually. In the discussion here tonight, what we're looking for, and it's tied to Brian's future item, is this something that we want to consider doing for the 2026 budget? The funding sources would likely be the stormwater fund and the environmental fund, so it wouldn't have a levy impact, but it would use resources out of those two funds, however directed. So with that, I'm here to entertain any questions. Gary's also a local expert on composting. So he can kind of talk, if you really want to get into it, why it won't work on any of our sites. And,
Won't work.
it's staffing, it's security, it's all that stuff. It far exceeds this amount. So if it's something that you want to do and provide as a service to the residents, I think this is probably the best solution. If this is something that you're looking for, or residents are bringing it up to you, this would be a solution for yard waste.
Can't our residents already contact their garbage vendors if they want to set this up on their own? So, no.
You can get a.
Yeah, they can get their own. Yeah. So I'm a no.
And this would be curbside, right? Not just getting rid of the $2 fee at the
No,
mulch
yeah.
store?
No, the mulch, you have
Disposal site.
to take your stuff there,
Oh, okay, so it's still,
right?
so it's basically just getting rid of the fee, if you're saying you're.
Correct, yep. So if you're a Minnetrista resident, they would check your ID, the way I understand it. And then if you have a Minnetrista address, they would then let you get rid of your yard waste for no cost. Other
Well, it's a
than,
cost. It's coming from the city.
it is, yeah, other than
So it's still costing me
Correct.
residents for it.
But I would suggest not taking it out of the environmental fund versus then it's really not, because that's development fees. That's comes from developers. If the council would like to do this, then that's the fund I would take it out of.
and if not, we talked about it. And if you have residents that have talked to you, it's just, you have the option to do it. It costs, I don't even know if it's $2. Is that what?
Last time I did it was $2.
That's it?
Yeah, it was $2 a
It
bag.
depends.
Okay,
Oh, a
okay.
bag, okay.
$2 a bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it depends on how much you have.
Yeah.
You know, if you're taking that big tree down or something like that, you're probably going to be more than $10.
But the city's paying for it.
The city would pay for the
Reimburse it.
13,000 per year.
Would that be flat fee or?
Well, we'd have to, so that's, it's
Nope.
nuanced a little bit. We'd have to get an agreement with Waste Management. I was telling Brian, I said, well, if we just negotiated that recycling contract a little bit, but we didn't talk about this at that time, but we could maybe leverage their current partnership with them. I don't know what it would be exactly. They haven't given me a number.
I wouldn't want to go that route.
Yeah.
Because that,
Well, I'm just saying that we have an existing relationship, not that we would, use it.
because that, I mean, I can't imagine, yeah, I'm just thinking of our yard waste. There's, to put it in a little bag, it's like, no way.
Oh, no. That's not what I'm saying. Like not curbside or anything
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Just because we have a existing contract and relationship with
Okay.
Waste Management, we would have that ability to talk about it. So,
Because if it wasn't flat fee, I'd be concerned about it being abused. Like I run a yard company, and so now I'm running all my customers' waste through the Minnetrista.
Oh, yeah.
they would catch on to that real quick. If you're a contractor that's bringing that in, we, in both Northfield and Lesueur, we had compost sites, and you would get that a lot of large trees that would get just dropped off, especially if it's not secured. So that's a big problem with city compost sites, is you get a lot of things that one are too big or contractor grade size things. And you also get a lot of garbage like sofas and
Well, but you're talking about if you took it to the mulch store.
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
like if you were a contractor and you brought it to the mulch
Yeah.
store, they'd catch on to that real quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
I don't think it's become, I mean, seasonally we will have a few people ask, but I don't think it's become a big deal where there's a clamoring for, dozens of people, saying I'm mad that the city's not providing this service. I think usually this
I think,
staff just
yeah.
tells them go to the mulch
Go
store.
to
and
the
they're
mulch store.
okay.
I think once the emerald ash borer continues to do its damages, there might be more interest in it. But if you're not interested, then okay.
I don't see it as a
No.
compelling
Okay.
need.
Nope.
All right.
I certainly don't. see it.
Okay. All right.
That was quick.
Next one. Next one, budget levy considerations.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, so this is at the, when I saw the packet put together, the first 100 pages was a bunch of, the 990s and stuff, which are, or whatever, so,
And actually, I'm sorry, before you jump in, since it's kind of a foundational question, do you have has there been any communication from the county as to what their levy is? I know that in the media, they've said it's going to be considerable to historic this year, just because I think that'll color this conversation, at least in my head.
I can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah.
I
Go
mean, if
ahead.
you
No,
want,
go
unless you
ahead.
have, yeah.
No, go ahead. I'll chime in if I need to. Go ahead.
So that, Commissioner Anderson was here and gave a little spiel about how the Medicaid and Medicare costs were shifting from the state to the county. I believe that got dampened a little bit in the legislative session when they passed the omnibus bill. I don't know the official impacts, but prior to that passage, they were like in double digits, 12 to 15%, which they generally are like 5 to 7%, something like that. Single digits, low single digits, we'll say low to mid single digits. So almost doubling what the typical is. So after the omnibus bill, I haven't heard yet, but probably more than 5%, but less than 12. So in that range, so pretty significant comparatively to what they have done historically in the past.
No, I had heard that on an average household, again, we're probably not average households out here because it's more, was like $70 a year to $100 a year. But keep in mind, it depends on the value of your property, and then the other thing too, I think I heard is that the costs are going to continue to go up. So this would just be like the first year and then years after this. But the other thing I would caution on is I understand we want to be careful, totally get that, but we need to focus on what our city needs, and we need to try and be as frugal as possible. I get that, but we can't really base our levy on fears of what the county might do. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and my thought is just as we go into this conversation, even though the city is only a relatively small part of the tax bill, that doesn't really matter to people in Minnetrista when they get their tax bill.
Yeah, right.
So I'm just inclined to look at things maybe through a little stingier lens if we know that the overall tax bill burden is going to be significantly higher. But no, I agree though. Our responsibility is to the city first, so we need to.
Right. Yeah. And it's going to be a tough one. I mean, this year is going to be a tough one.
So the county already is probably close to 40% of City of Minnetrista's residents' bill of the total tax bill. It's like the county's about 40, the school on average is probably 30-ish, and then we're like 23% or something, less than a quarter. The city. So yeah, we've had this discussion with the council as a group before too, as far as, well, what can we do to maybe help mitigate the overall? But it's like, well, we still need, like the mayor was saying, we still need to do what we need to do to fund our city services, whether it's operations or capital or roads and stuff. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. And I know I even threw the one slide in there, and I know people can say, well, these are so many neighbors, and you can find a neighbor who's paying less per person for taxes. But I think, when you compare us to, Orono and Medina and Mound, we're paying less than city taxes as Minnetrista residents. So not to say that there's room to grow, but there's obviously room for things we need to do. So it's not like we're already a mid to high tax city in the area. I would say we're a low to mid tax city in the area as far as, I think everyone would hopefully agree with that, or for what we're doing for the city. So, I don't know, should I just jump into the memo, or if anyone's got specific questions. So, obviously, so on page 109 of the package, the biggest driver usually of the levy is obviously the people. That's we need police and public works and admin staff to provide services to the city. So the biggest impact there is probably the compensation per the pay plan and the union contracts.
Union contracts,
the
increase. Oh, okay, because they're already set for next year. It's next year. 4%. Yeah. Okay.
27 will be unknown right now, but the 26 is good. So that, along with I know the fire contract, fire service seems to be where we going with that, and then obviously
that 2% might be a little light.
Yeah. So that's already so when you look at those first two items, you're probably looking at 6% right 6%. There. It might even be light, like you said, 6-7%, and then you've got a couple of the other just in regular operations, cost of doing business, and the insurance and things like that. I mean, you're probably looking at, for more your general fund of activities, about 7.5%, 8% potentially, depending on where we land on some of those items. Item 2 there, at least we've gotten our fund balance sort of our spending down, a fund balance down to like only 40,000 now. So we're really not too much to address there. So that shouldn't be, too big an issue. So, probably overall, we're looking at, that if in the general fund, 500,000 or so, 7-8%, increase there. Just a, quick rough estimate. Obviously, we'll bring back the details once the budget committee continues. I think we have a meeting again tomorrow for staff level, our budget department managers, so working group, and we'll bring all the detailed information to the council at the August work sessions for the tax levy stuff. And then the third item there is usually what to do with roads and the equipment. So do we try to increase our roads levy again? Do we keep it where it is? Same with equipment. There'll be some obviously equipment needs for police and technology and public works and there. So yeah, when you look at the total potential impacts from just a real high level, you could be looking at 800, 750, 850, which is 10-12% when you compare our levy right now is at 7 million roughly. So we've done this the last several years. At least came to council, and had the at least council. I guess where are you at? If it's around 10%, is that going to be acceptable? Is there 8 or 9 or 12 or what's sort of? I guess it's hard for everyone to sort of wrap their get to a right balance of providing service and making sure we're staying on top of things. We just had a discussion on there's a lot of needs in the community and what to fund and what has priorities, and maybe I'll turn it over to council, I guess, if there's any.
Did a question about it. What's the advantage of doing capital through a levy versus the equipment certificates?
Years ago it was like we had our cash levy up to right now it's at 200,000. We had it at like 300,000 several years back.
350.
Yeah, I think it was even 350, and then some of the needs for the roads, and then there was some other it was a place I guess to sort of pick away at and decrease, and then when we'd have some ebbs and flows. So some years we'd go real light on equipment, but then we'd come with an equipment certificate the next year. And obviously if you can have us pay as you go, that's you avoid some interest and stuff on equipment certificates. But in order to keep that cash levy lower, we've supplemented through the equipment certificates. And so if you all of a sudden need 600,000 in equipment or 800,000, if you spread that over 5 years, you're paying back 100, 150, 200,000 versus trying to fund 600,000, 800,000 all at once. So
Okay.
I think we'd prefer to use cash if we can. It saves us a little bit on interest, but I think just practicality right now, there's a lot of capital equipment that is planned. Not that I pointed at Gary. Gary didn't notice that I pointed at him, but we need it. We need to do something. And I think the equipment certificate is probably the best mechanism as opposed to, having a 10% levy increase associated with equipment like in 1 year.
Maybe what we need to look at is rather than doing an equipment certificate every single year, maybe we don't do an equipment certificate every year and we just have to kind of tighten our belt for a few years and then maybe start doing an equipment certificate every other year and then using some of our cash for smaller purchases or something like that. I think, we can't have everything. So something has to give. And maybe we don't levy 150,000 additional for roads. Maybe we levy 100,000 for roads. Maybe this year we don't levy an additional 50 for capital equipment plans until we can get some of the other, I'm thinking about the salaries and stuff, it's 4%, 4%, 4%. Eventually that's going to level out. I'm hoping maybe more to the 2 and 3% that used to be more common. So maybe when that happens, then we can increase the road and the capital equipment plan a little more. That's just a thought.
Sort of like a balloon a little bit.
Yeah.
We've had some more pressures on the operations.
Right.
And we probably were a little low on the general fund levy because we were focusing on roads and we had some of the expenditures in the general fund, obviously compensation.
Right. Compensation was the big one.
And I'll add the one benefit to doing equipment certificates is when they fall off, then you have that, a
Right.
gap to, potentially re-roll that into some additional. So
Right.
we're not really hitting that fully yet, but
Next year, are there any equipment certificates that fall off?
I think there might be the 2021 or whatever. There might be one. Yeah.
There might be one. Is it like 80,000?
Yeah, 80 or 100 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
Which would be good, because then if we don't issue one in 26, there's 100,000, if you will. Either you roll that into capital equipment plan, or you split it and put it in roads or capital equipment, or somehow you can maybe maneuver that. I don't know.
And we'll have a little better feel as far as like where the 2025 road projects end up, because that's coming out of the road maintenance fund.
Right.
We didn't bond for those this year. So if we have some, savings there or something, and we do have some special assessment revenue coming into that road maintenance fund where, now that we've been doing, some assessments in those
Right.
for that fund for several years, there might be somewhere we can, dip into the road maintenance fund balance that's not tax levy dollars a little bit to help. We still have money there and we're still doing things,
Right.
but we maybe don't have to increase the levy as much, every year or whatever. So.
Right, because I know in 26, we're planning on doing another bond for road, 4.9 or 3.9% million. So I really think we need to be very careful.
and this, if I can add,
Yeah.
this is one item that's going to be considered tonight for approval is the water treatment plant and just our bonded debt in general. Brian and I were chatting last week, and I mean, we're looking at potentially, 25, depending on when, at least $25 million in bonded debt next year that will likely issue in January, I think, is what we were kind of saying, or early in
Right.
26. So it's a significant amount. Not all of that's levy,
Right.
but a lot of it's
usually-
water. But it's, it's probably the most, I don't know, the biggest bond that we're going to sell
Sure. Yeah,
as a community ever.
Ever.
So there's a lot of financial pressures
Mhm.
right now about things that we're trying to do and get done. And, staying the course with the street projects is important. I think that just in my short time here, the feedback has been really good from residents as far as.
But we might have to not put a pause on it, but maybe just ratchet it back a little bit, because if we do the 26 projects and we bond, which we're going to have to bond for it, then I think we're going to have to pause several years before we do another big bond, because it's just adding up too quickly. Maybe we wait until one bond falls off or something like that. So, but it's not to say we're not going to do anything. We're going to continue doing some projects, but maybe just cash for a while. But so I understand what Brian is saying, and I think it's we need to keep that in mind as well, because as he said, people look at their tax statement and it's like, So, but I think start out at maybe the 10% kind of and see what we can do. Like you said, maybe we'll know a little more later on in the year.
Yeah,
Even if we had to do a 10 or 11% right now and then work on it throughout the fall and then bring it down, hopefully, let's say like we did last year, like 9% or something like that, if we could.
Done that the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Like the one year it was like 15 down to 12, and it was 12 down to 9.5 or 11 or
Right.
whatever. I mean, yeah, it seems
Right.
like we've done that. So yeah, because I always got to remember. I mean, everyone knows here that it's a ceiling you're setting in September, and then those preliminary
Right.
notices go out in November. So you always want to give yourself, if you start at 10 point whatever, and you can always come down to 8, 9, or 8.5, 9 or something. So.
I was pretty excited last year when I saw the preliminary and then saw the actual came in.
Yeah, a little less.
Percent
A
under
little
it.
less. I know. It's always.
Loves us.
Yeah. Okay, 15%. And then come back with, well, yeah, and we don't want to back ourselves in a corner and do it solo, and then we realize, oh, there's this expense or that expense or whatever. So, yeah, see what you can do and make some recommendations. I mean, I think roads are still going to be high priority I think. But maybe we just don't ratchet it up quite as much. But we can start out at 150, but we'll have to see. Yeah. Um,
I think that's just, some general, like a
Yeah.
starting point, not that we say 10 and the council says 6 or 14 even. Hey, they're not computing.
I think in today's market and in today's atmosphere, I just don't see it coming in at 6%. I mean, not with what we're trying to do here, so.
And I think Brian kind of touched on this. We haven't been the leader by any means in the levy increases over the last years, which is fine, right? We have to
Right.
think about our local needs and things like that. But, there's always communities that are close to 20%, it seems like, on an annual basis somewhere in our region. I think Dayton or Medina,
Dayton
they've
was,
always
yeah.
they've always been very high. So, I think we're doing the right thing and just being really conscious about it and trying to do the right thing.
I was gonna ask Brian, the license and permits, you have it only going down by 9,000 from 25 to 26. Does that seem realistic? I think it's gonna fall more than that.
Yeah, no, I think it's possible. Yeah, if I talk to David a little more, I mean, some of that is going to be what our inventory is left as far as buildable lots and where we're at. So, yeah, that could be another pressure, I guess, as far as if 750 needs to be 650 or something. So, yeah, I think I plugged that in more as a placeholder, but I probably got to get a little better data as far as if we even have, depending on what happens in our development or future lots and stuff or whatever, if we even have 7,500 left, I guess.
I think we'll have probably 100 left, but we're looking, there's some things that are out there swirling around. Maybe we'll know more by the fall, which would be really good, but we don't know. Yeah.
And this year we're trending just like last year, basically. So,
Okay.
as far as permit numbers and revenue.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, you can see back to 20.
Are we going to get a tornado?
Tornado warning for us right now.
Yeah, I know. For us?
Yeah, Laconia and stuff here too.
Okay.
Coming in, it's really, really.
The watch or the
bad.
warning worse? I never remember.
Warning.
Warning's worse.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just outside of
So
Waconia.
what I'm going to do is say, can we adjourn right now? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Brian. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes 4-0. So if you'll keep an eye on that and let us know, do we need to go in that crummy old basement?
The sirens haven't gone off yet.
There's no sirens.
We're not quite in there yet. It's just outside of
By Lester.
Yeah.
It's approaching right now.
Yeah.
Hey.